My name is Vinesh. Welcome to my project update video on calibration techniques and error assessment for 3D stereo photography. In this video, I will be talking about the outline and progress of my final year project. The outline consists of overview, background research, calibration, MATLAB results, error assessment, results so far, and what's next. What is stereo vision? 3D stereo vision is the concept of combining two slightly different photographs to create a perception of depth in a 2D image. This image will be interpreted as 3D image by human brains, as we can see on the picture. 3D stereo photography is the process involving photogrammetry. It is the process of extracting 3D information from photographs by overlapping photographs of a specific object or structure and converting them into 2D or 3D digital models using specific software. It also requires a minimum of 2 cameras to capture the photographs. There are several camera setups available for the dual camera setup. A short baseline setup was chosen for this project. Dual DSLR Canon cameras were used. They were equipped and preset with the same type of focal length and internal intrinsic settings. Intrinsic and extrinsic properties of cameras will adversely affect our calibration and camera parameters. Extrinsic parameters refers to the physical characteristics outside of the camera itself. They include distance between the two cameras, height, distance from the object to the dual camera setup, rotation. Intrinsic parameters refer to the characteristics inside of the camera itself. They include focal length, image plane, optical center, and skew coefficient. Using extrinsic and intrinsic parameters, we are able to transform 3D world coordinates to 2D pixel coordinates. For calibrations, Computer Vision Toolbox and Stereo Camera Calibrator provided by MATLAB was utilized. 2 checkerboards of A3 and A4 sizes were prepared for the calibration. Inaccuracies to the extrinsic and intrinsic properties of the cameras were introduced to see how they affect the calibration and the error induced by them. Total of 5 different tests were conducted. The inaccuracies introduced were imperfections on the checkerboard surface, different focal points, misaligned camera, and size of checkerboards. For the stereo camera calibrator, we are required to upload sets of image pairs captured by our dual camera setup. Each set of photographs will have the checkerboard placed in different locations. MATLAB then reads the checkerboard points from these images to calibrate the camera. This allows us to calculate the reprojection error that occur in the image pairs. The reprojection error are the distances in pixels between the detected and the reprojected points. The Stereo Camera Calibrator app calculates reprojection errors by projecting the checkerboard points from world coordinates into image coordinates. The app then compares the reprojected points to the corresponding detected points. As a general rule stated by MATLAB, mean reprojection errors of less than 1 pixel are acceptable. Calibrations with errors less than 1 pixel allows us to export its camera parameters for further 3D point cloud construction and error assessment experiment. Here we have the tabulated results of the different tests. Imperfect checkerboard surface induced the highest pixel error. Different focal point, misaligned camera had lesser pixel error. However, all these results were unacceptable as the pixel error was above 1. For the benchmark, we have a pixel error of 0.7, which falls in the acceptable category. In the test of the wide angle, we use the A3 and A4 sized checkerboards. Although both of them show acceptable pixel errors, the A3 has higher accuracy and better calibration in terms of the reprojected errors. These calibrated camera parameters were then exported for further 3D point cloud construction. Using these calibrated intrinsic and extrinsic properties, a set of image pairs was captured. A green stool was used as the object for 3D point cloud construction. Using our calibrated camera parameters, we are able to code and generate a rectified image from the unrectified image. We can see from the rectified image how the two cameras meet at the center. This rectified image can be further mapped as a disparity map. The disparity map shows the distances between the objects, white being further, black being nearer. A 3D point cloud is constructed using the rectified image. This photo shows the XYZ coordinates of the point cloud. Since we were not able to see anything valuable in the XYZ graph, when we rotate the graph to the XY coordinate, we begin to see and understand the 3D point cloud. This is the final result of the photograph being constructed in a 3D point cloud. This successfully shows that we were able to import data from the 3D world coordinates to the 2D coordinates in the software. Following a successful 3D point cloud reconstruction, we are able to know that we have successful calibration. Using this calibration and camera parameters, we move on to error assessment. To do this, an experiment was designed. All intrinsic and extrinsic values of this experiment is to be highly controlled. It was designed to track small movements of the checkerboard. By tracking the small movements, we were able to determine the accuracy of the movements at different distances. Distance increments of 250 mm was conducted from 550 mm to 2000 mm. To have consistent experimental results, the setup has to be carefully designed. The checkerboard was placed on a flat surface with markers on both sides. It was moved backwards in increments of 1 mm. Markers on both sides prevented the checkerboard from moving diagonally during the experiment. It was moved 11 times per experiment. The distance from the checkerboard to the camera was measured from the tip of the lens to the checkerboard surface. This factor was kept consistent throughout all experiments. Here we can see an example of the 550 mm experimental results. We can observe that the mean pixel error of 0.25 was achieved during calibration. This low number suggests that a good calibration has taken place. As for the extrinsic parameters and the movement of the checkerboard, the data has been extracted from MATLAB and tabulated for easier viewing. At 550 mm, it boasts an accuracy of 99.79% and an error of 0.2%. However, this does not show the error for per mm moved. Applying the same intrinsic and extrinsic camera parameters for the other distance experiments, we are able to acquire data. Using this data, we can plot the graph for accuracy for the remainder of the distances. We can visually notice from here that at the 1500 mm mark and beyond, there is a noticeable dip in accuracy. Several factors that might be affecting this drop in accuracy could be the lens, human error, and checkerboard size. As the distance increased, the checkerboard squares got smaller and therefore adversely affecting the accuracy of the experiment. We can conclude that the distance will indeed affect the accuracy of the experiment and also open doors for a wider range of errors that can affect the experiment. For the remainder of the project, I am to assess the error for the per mm moved. This allows me to find the error for every mm the checkerboard has been moved. Many factors affect the per mm moved by the checkerboard. Noticeably, human error in moving the checkerboard was prominent. Parallax error also played a major part in affecting the accuracy of the experiment. Even with carefully controlled environment, there are bound to have some human errors. Also, an analysis of how these errors have affected the experiment will be looked into in the remainder of the weeks.